We all thought it was impossible, but Sparkles just did the 90% trade up for the #1 lowest float op dragon lore in the world, and guess what? He asked me to help him with it. He already made 3 videos about this crazy endeavor, the last one being the attempt itself. And if you haven't watched all 3 of those videos, then go watch them right now. I'll leave a link to them in the description. But after that, come back to this video because I have some really cool details to share with you. SkinSwap is a CS2 skin site where you can conveniently buy, trade, and sell your CS2 skins. Not only that, but they're giving you a free case to open when you start using the site where you could get up to $150. You can buy skins with only a couple clicks. Trading your skins is as easy as selecting the items that you're trading and selecting the item that you want. And even if you're a little short on your trade, you can top up your balance with a 40% deposit bonus. And you can also sell them your skins instantly and get paid out in a large variety of payment methods. Not only that, but they're always running weekly giveaways for up to $250, currently for a Bowie knife slaughter. So use code TECHSAVVY now to claim your free case, and check out the link to SkinSwap in the description if you want to buy, trade, or sell your CS2 skins. Creating the new #1 dragon lore was no easy feat, as the previous #1 already had an insanely low float. I'm sure you guys know all about this skin. It is the Quad 0 1337 420 69 op dragon lore, crafted by Frankfurter several years ago. If you know anything about floats, you'll know that 4 zeros and a 1 is insanely low for any skin, and this is the dragon lore, which is a covert skin from the Cobblestone collection, which is an extremely expensive collection that hasn't dropped for years. But to cut to the chase, basically my point is that the trade up inputs for this dragon lore simply do not exist. The only skin that trades up to the op dragon lore is the M4A1S Knight, and you'd need floats of Quad 02 or lower to make this happen. So what do you do if you need skins that don't exist? Well, obviously you trade up to them. This is still insanely expensive, and the only thing that really makes this possible is the fact that the Knight has a float cap of 0.1. So this means if you want to get Quad 02 Knights, you need to trade up average float of 0002, which is still insanely low, and it gets even harder when you learn that out of the 2 possible inputs, the CZ Chalice and the Desert Eagle hand cannon, only the CZ Chalice is usable because the hand cannon has an extremely awkward lower float cap of 0.01, meaning that it's simply too high to use in such a trade-up. Now, although these CZ Chalices are somewhat available, there's still not enough available to create the #1 dragon lore, so Sparkles had to trade up to the Chalices as well. And luckily, the Chalice also has a very low float cap of 0.1, meaning that you need a trade-up average float of 0.002 for the inputs. And again, there's plenty of 002 Cobblestone mil specs, but there's not quite enough to make this project possible. But luckily, again, the Cobblestone mil specs have a very low float cap of 0.22. This means that you can trade up to them, and if you use low enough float train fillers, then you can even get away with using minimal wear cobblestone skins. And those skins, while not cheap, they are readily available, so Sparkles got to work buying up all the low float chalices, all the low float cobblestone mil specs, and all the cobblestone industrials as well. Let me reiterate this fact because this is kind of crazy. You can start with minimal wear cobblestone industrials and chain them all the way up to the #1 lowest float dragon lore with 4 zeros and a 1. Now I'll let him tell the story for the first 9 nights because he already posted videos about them, but the really interesting part comes in at the very end, and this is the part where I helped him. If you take a look at the float of the previous #1 dragon lore, you'll notice that it actually contains 3 meme numbers right next to each other, 1337, 420, 69, and this is no accident. Frankfurter created his trade up in such a way that he knew he was gonna get this float. Doing this is not easy and it takes a lot of work, but guess what? I happen to know how to do it. If you've been watching my channel for about a year or so, you'll know that I crafted the #1 lowest float Desert Eagle Emerald Yermangander, and its float had 5 zeros followed by 7 sixes. But how can you control floats to such accuracy? Before we dive any deeper, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm buying skins for PayPal. So if you've been thinking about cashing out your skins, this is your opportunity. I buy pretty much anything and everything, including the new armory skins. I even wrote a guide on how to safely sell your skins so that it's as easy as possible for you. So direct message me on Discord and I'll get you cashed out for PayPal as soon as possible. Well, the secret lies in the average float of the trade up, because if you know the average float of the trade up, you know exactly what the float is going to be of the outcome skins. But of course, now the problem is, how do you you control the average float of a trade up? Well, the average float is simply the sum of all 10 floats of each skin divided by 10. So let me give you a simpler example. We're just going to take two numbers and add them up. So let's say 0.216 and 0.387. This would give us a sum of 0.603. So now let's say you want to add in a third skin and you want to make the average 0.222. If you have three floats and you want the average to be 0.222, then they must add up to 0.666 in total, 3 times 0.222. And to get that, you need the third float to be 0.063. So 0.216 plus 0.387 plus 0.063 add up to 0.666. And if you divide it by 3 to get the average, you get 0.222. To celebrate this crazy video, I'm giving away a factory new MP9 Dark Age from the Cobblestone collection. And all you have to do to win it is like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment down below what your favorite part of this video was, and if this video hits 500 likes within the first week, I'll roll the giveaway. Now this was a simple example, but if you expand this example to use 10 numbers, and instead of 3 decimal places you use 10 decimal places, then that is the exact same thing as trying to control the average float of a trade up. But of course, now the question is, how do you find 10 skins where their floats add up to the perfect amount that you need? Well, you have two options. You can get the first 9 skins and calculate the exact float that you need for the 10th skin, and if you're lucky, it already exists and you can just buy it. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I usually don't even consider this as an option, as I've never gotten lucky enough where the skin that I need already exists. And of course, this problem is amplified in the case of the #1 float up dragon lore. Now, the second option is not as attractive, but it is a lot easier to do, and it is actually possible, and it involves using a lot of math. Obviously, I won't bore you guys with the exact math, but the basic concept is that you get a bunch of skins, like 50, with roughly the average float that you're aiming for, then believe it or not, it is more than likely that there is a combination of 10 of those skins that add up to the exact float that you want. But again, the problem is that there aren't 50 knights that have such low floats. But don't worry, there's always something that can be done. We're gonna combine both methods. And the way we're gonna combine it is that we're gonna take the first 9 skins, the 9 knights that Sparkle's already created, and using their floats and the average float that we're aiming for, you can exactly calculate what the float of the last knight must be, so we reduced our problem from crafting an exact float dragon lore to crafting an exact float M4 knight. Much easier, but still insanely difficult. Now obviously, to craft an M4 knight, you're gonna need an insane amount of chalices, so Sparkle's paid me to do a bunch of trade-offs for him, not even for chalices, but he asked me to create as many cobblestone mil specs as I could with low enough floats where it could be used for this purpose. As I'm sure you can tell from this little montage, there were a lot of misses, but that is expected. Cobblestone trade-ups are risky, but in the end I managed to make 29 new cobblestone mil specs for him that he then proceeded to throw into trade-ups to try to get some chalices. If you want to see how those went, you're gonna have to check out his video. And now we can get back to the problem of how we're gonna craft an M4 knight with the exact float that we need. Obviously that knight does not exist, so we're gonna trade up to that knight as well. So we're gonna take 9 restricted skins, including a bunch of chalices. We're gonna calculate what the float of the last skin must be, and we're gonna craft that skin. And now this skin doesn't necessarily even have to be a chalice, it can be an amber fade. It's just that obviously makes it a little risky for getting the knight. And crafting that amber fade is gonna be really easy. We simply need a bunch of dust 2 mil specs with around the right float, and there's definitely at least 50 or so of them. Then we use math and computers to generate all the combinations, and we take the best one that's closest to the average float that we need. That gives us the amber fade that we slap in with the other 9 restricted skins. Again, since we calculated the float of the amber fade exactly, the average float of this trade up is also calculated exactly to be the right number, and this trade up is gonna be risky. Sparkles ended up going for a 20% as well as a 40%, and at this point in time I don't know if he hit any of them or not, but if he does, then he has the exact correct float knight that would complete his trade up for the #1 op dragon lore. The 20% trade up for the knight would give him a knight that would make the dragon lore have a float of quad 0111111, and the 40% trade up would give him a knight that would make the dragon lore quad 012345667. Both would be really cool, but these were the last of his chalices, so if these don't hit, then unfortunately the dragon lore is not going to have a special float, but obviously it is still going to be number 1, and it's still going to be a 90% trade up. Speaking of 90%, he's not going for a 100% trade up as he stated in his second video about this project. He's going for a 90% purely for the content, purely that there is that small risk of missing. Frankly, in my personal opinion, this is completely crazy, but I gotta respect the length that he goes to make his videos more exciting. At this point, my work is done on this project. Best of luck, Sparkles. The video is already out by the time you're watching it, and when I'm recording this video, I don't know what the outcome of it was. Sparkles, I'm talking to you now. It was truly an honor to get to work on this project with you. I had a lot of fun doing it. I'm sending you all of my luck so that you can hit this 90% and create the new number 1 float op dragon lore. This is truly a legendary moment in Counter-Strike skin history.